Hey, what's going on, everybody? Let me put this up real quick. There we go. Thanks for tuning in. Back with another episode for you. I know. Look, it's Sunday, about to be 1 o'clock. We got plenty of games about to kick off, but I definitely had some things I wanted to talk about. I won't I won't try to keep you too long because, like I said, I know you guys got your teams to watch. My Patriots are going against the Chiefs today. We'll see how they do. Hoping for a win, but you know, been a rough season. What's going on, Jory? How are you? Let me know. Hopefully the audio is coming through clearly. But um, so yeah, we got a lot to talk about. We have Draymond Green. Found out what's going to happen with him. We'll talk about that. We got to talk about Cam Newton. I don't know if all of you heard about what's going on with him, so I'll bring you up to date and give you my opinions on that. Got to talk about Brandon Staley. Audio's fine. Praying for a Titans win. I mean, your team is. I mean, Titans are still hanging on in the wild card chase, so a win today could definitely help out with them, depending on some of the things that happen in the other games. But yeah, we got plenty to talk about, and then at the end, do have the new segment that debuted with last week. So hopefully you enjoy that. But let's just go ahead. Let's get into these stories and let's have some fun with it. So, like I said, Draymond Green found out that he's being suspended indefinitely. Now, here's the image of the play here. He and Nurkic were, I guess, wrestling for position. Draymond was posting him up. Nurkic was, I guess, grabbing him a little bit, and Draymond, in Draymond fashion, flailed, spun. It hit Nurkic the side of his head. Nurkic went down for a little bit. He had to make sure everything was good. And Draymond ran off the court and everything like that. We were waiting to see what the league would do because he did the chokehold on Rudy Gobert. He got 5 games, which to some wasn't long enough. They felt like that one deserved more, so the league stepped in and said indefinite suspension. Now, indefinite doesn't give us a timeline on how many games necessarily, which I do think some people would rather have seen the league say, no, it's 10 games, it's 15 games, 20, whatever. So leaving it open-ended with indefinite, I feel like the detractors of Adam Silver who feel like he's too player-friendly, he's soft and all that, I think some of them weren't happy with it being indefinite. So for me, I mean, I don't have an issue with it because, the way it's being portrayed is that, Draymond's going to take this time away to, I guess, figure some things out. Whatever that means, that whatever. I guess we'll see how quickly he comes back. With the indefinite suspension, you can assume he's not going to play on Christmas Day. I think some people thought that was going to be an issue where, because the Warriors play on Christmas Day, Draymond Green is a known player around the league, that the league might have been soft on him because they wanted him to be a part of that. Well, much to the opposite. He's going to miss that game. From what it kind of seems like, we may not see him until after the first of the year. But I don't know. You guys will let me know how long you think the suspension actually lasts. But I think the part of the Draymond story that people are also asking is, kind of like, how did we get here? Could this have been prevented? Who do we blame? I mean, one, you have to blame the man, Draymond Green. He's a grown man. So his actions on the court, he has to kind of account for that. A lot of people, like I said, are blaming the league for enabling Draymond to continue to act this way. And I can see that, perfectly valid argument. But it's probably a bigger issue in terms of the Warriors and their structure. Because when you look at their star players, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, they're not seen as the most physical players. They're perimeter oriented. They're always seen as kind of finesse players. Draymond is the guy who gives them that edge, the toughness. So when he's out on the court, he instigates a lot, and it seems like he has to be like the bodyguard for those two. Jory put 10 to 15 games, which, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody would have had a problem with that. Ultimately, maybe depending on the conditions that he's supposed to meet, maybe it turns into about 10 games. But I feel like the biggest moment, because look, we know all about what he did with LeBron back in the finals, or Steven Adams, or Sabonis, or anything like that. Those kind of went whatever. They came and went, whatever. I feel like for the Warriors, the Jordan Poole stuff would have been a good opportunity to maybe stop some of this. But instead, when Draymond and Poole had their little disagreement, Draymond went up to him and punched him. It almost seemed like that was like the beginning of the end of Jordan Poole in Golden State. Shortly after, what happened? He gets traded to Washington. So the team basically took that moment and was like, between Draymond and Jordan Poole, we're going to choose Draymond because he's been a bigger part of this recent success. Whereas Jordan Poole was seen as expendable, was seen as a potential headache because of the supposed behavior that he had after the championship and everything, where he felt like he was a bigger contributor. So if you look at that incident, and let's say the Warriors told him, you're not going to be there for ring night, you're not going to do all this, you have to step away. Maybe this incident with Nurkic may not have happened. Maybe he'd have gotten a message and changed a little bit. But he didn't. So he continued to play the same way, which, if we're going to be honest, a lot of teams have, well, I guess a lot of the successful teams have players or a player that toes that line between kind of reckless and, I guess, hardworking player. I mean, I'm a Celtics fan. Marcus Smart was a guy who would get into it with players, but he never did stuff like this. And Marcus Smart still got on people's nerves. You know, Patrick Beverley, guys like that who aren't the most gifted players, but because of their like heart, their work rate, and all that, they stay around in the league and are seen as glue guys to championship winning teams. But for Draymond, like I said, this recent activity has kind of crossed that line into reckless. So for a players association that is supposed to, take the interest and the safety of the players at heart, the fact that he's out here now doing stuff like this to Nurkic puts them in a tough situation. I'm sure they want to appeal the indefinite suspension, but then if you do that, you're kind of not taking into consideration what happened to Nurkic on the play. And for the league itself, it's like if we don't stop this now and try to help Draymond Green out here, what's the next incident? Could Draymond possibly lead another Malice at the Palace, which we know, the league hated that being a part of the NBA's history. And to be honest with you, if you think about any player in the league today, who could you see possibly starting something like that? Probably Draymond Green. So we'll see how long he's out. We'll see if anything changes from this, to use the Major League reference, the movie. I think it was between the first and the second one. Remember, Pedro Serrano went off and became like a Buddhist or something and completely changed his demeanor, was more peaceful, and he struggled. And then he had to kind of find that anger that fueled him in the first movie. Will we see a more friendlier Draymond Green after this? And if we do, doesn't that kind of take away from his game? So I don't know. I don't know how much the Warriors probably want him to change. But for the public eye, they have to make it seem like, Draymond, you got to stop this. But like I said, let me know what you think about the suspension. You think indefinite was right? Or do you think maybe this should have been another 5-gamer? Jory already put 10 to 15 games. So let me know in the comments what you think about the suspension. Plus, you can probably let me know about the Warriors as well. They're definitely struggling this season, and now these games without Draymond, we'll have to see how well they do. Speaking of, the NBA, Jory, if you're watching, I know this is your Lakers, but the Spurs, who probably because of Detroit's futility, haven't necessarily been getting as much, you know, national news as the Pistons because the Pistons losing streaks a little bit longer. But now, you can say that no more. The Spurs got a win over the Lakers. You're probably thinking the Lakers must have been missing everybody. No. LeBron played in the game. There was no AD and a few others, but LeBron was there. And the Spurs got the 129-115 win. So you have to give the Spurs credit. They beat a LeBron James-led Lakers team. Like it says, their first win since November 2nd, which is a long time, which if you think about for Detroit, which is even longer time, that's kind of crazy that in the league today, teams are, these two teams went basically a month without winning a game. It's crazy. For San Antonio, I feel like it was more acceptable because they're such a young team. It was Wemby's first year, so not a lot of expectations. For Detroit, the reason why it's getting so much publicity is that I think some people thought Detroit could have been like an Orlando Magic type of team to surprise in the East and maybe hang around as a play-in type team. But it looks like they're on pace for another terrible season. Unfortunately, I guess if you're a Pistons fan. So, shout out to San Antonio. Devin Vassell had like a career high 36 or 39 points. And now we'll see. Who knows? This could start a winning streak for the Spurs. They get a win over a pretty good Western Conference team in the Lakers. Who knows? But there was another part of the story that kind of caught my attention because the fact that LeBron played in the game and they lost, it seems like it's no big deal. I was wondering if it was the other way, LeBron sat out, AD played, and they lost. I feel like AD would be getting a lot of criticism for this. I'm just saying. Because AD, people love knocking AD when, he's in street clothes or he has games where he doesn't put up 30 and 20. But for this game, this is a team that you feel like if LeBron's on the court, the Lakers should have enough talent around him and with him to beat San Antonio. I haven't heard anything. I'm just saying, you let me know what you think. Because I know that a lot of people in the NBA, a lot of media, a lot of the content creators and stuff you see don't like criticizing LeBron necessarily because the ones who do are called haters. Like I said, I'm just saying LeBron played in this game and they lost to a team that hadn't won in over a month. But neither here nor there. So shout out to the Spurs for getting the win. They win another one. It's a winning streak. Something they haven't kind of gotten used to. But you let me know. What do you think about this? You think it looks bad for the Lakers losing to the Spurs? I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The Spurs were going to win a game at some point. Detroit, on the other hand, I don't know when they're going to win their next game. It might actually be in January, which is wild. Because that'd be 2 months without a win. And for Monty Williams, he's gonna have to figure out what to do with that squad. Because the biggest issue coaches have with young teams is them getting used to losing. Now, like I said, for San Antonio, I don't think it's that big of an issue with them. But for Detroit, some of these guys have been there for multiple seasons now and still are a losing organization. So Monty Williams was brought in to fix that, yet you could say this season's probably been worse than any of the recent seasons. Hold on a second. All right. So I'll definitely still be on Pistons watch because I know they have a few games coming up against like the Hawks, the Jazz. I think my Celtics are later in the month, which if they get to that point and still haven't won a game, I probably feel worse about their chances going into that game. So, yeah. I mean, I made a joke over on Sports Empire Network about this that since the Lakers lost this game, the whole honor ceremony should be canceled for LeBron. I was joking a little bit, but you win the in-season tournament and then you end up losing to the Spurs. Not exactly the best way to come out of that and use that momentum. Like I said, I still think the Lakers will be okay. They should be in the top 6. This loss won't even matter in a couple months. Like I said, we'll see if San Antonio can use the momentum. All right, so over to the NFL. The Raiders on Thursday night in a game that was seen as probably boring before the game. Not a lot of interest. I watched it. I'm sure a lot of people did, but the Raiders had their best performance of the year, 63-21, and to be honest with you, the Raiders could have scored more than 63, as wild as that sounds. They could have scored more than the Dolphins did against the Broncos when they put up 70. The way this game was going, it looked like the Raiders could have dropped 80 easily on this Chargers team. Chargers showed zero fight. There was a lot of mental errors, a lot of turnovers because of that. Just listless play from them. The 21 points was in strict garbage time when the Raiders took their foot off the gas. They ended up getting a few touchdown drives in there, but for the most part, it looked like it was going to be like an 80-something to 0 game. There's pick sixes, like I said, the fumbles, all that. The Raiders offense was clicking against the Chargers team that defensively have some good pieces on there, but like most of this season, for whatever reason, are a pretty bad defensive unit. Look, the Chargers are one of the more mind-bending teams in the NFL as to why they are this bad with the talent that they have. Now, look, this game, they didn't have Justin Herbert. If you want to use that as an excuse, go right ahead. But the problems the Chargers have been going on for much more than this past game against the Raiders. So, you know what? Shout out to Aiden O'Connell and them. They saw a team that was quitting on the field, and they were like the sharks in the water that smelled that blood and just kept going at them. Until the end when they took the foot off the gas. Like I said, I'd have loved to see them put up 80. I mean, put up 100. Why not? I'm telling you, if you did not see this game, it literally looked like the Raiders were about to score 100 on the Chargers. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's set aside for Madden games. And we were witnessing it live in front of us on national TV. So, a lot of the talk coming out of that game was going to be, so what are the ramifications for the Chargers because of this game? Which segues into the next topic. Brandon Staley. So the playoff loss to the Jaguars, where they were up big and lost the lead there, wasn't enough to get him fired. But now a Thursday night game in December, getting embarrassed by the Raiders, that was it. That was the last straw. Brandon Staley had to go at that point. Even though, like I said, after the playoff game, we all knew Brandon Staley's time had to be coming to an end. Unless this season was just another remarkable year with like 12, 13 wins. Maybe that would have saved him, even despite the playoff success that he's had in LA. But the Chargers finally came to their senses. They fired Brandon Staley. Even though Brandon Staley thought his job was safe, which kind of bold talk for a 4 or 5 win team. coming off of that playoff loss, like I just mentioned. So, other NFL franchise fans, Brandon Staley is available if you want him. To be honest with you, look, if Brandon Staley gets as much as a coach interview this offseason, I would be shocked. Because based on the track record, what is appealing about Brandon Staley as a head coach right now? You can't say he didn't have a good quarterback. He had Justin Herbert. A lot of these coaches out here don't have a quarterback of that caliber. Brandon Staley couldn't make it work. He had Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr., Bosa, a lot of great defensive players. And remember, Brandon Staley is a defensive-minded head coach, and he couldn't put it together. Now, if a team wants to bring him on as a defensive coordinator or something like that, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and get upset, but he better not get a head coaching interview. Like, I don't even want to hear his name mentioned as a rumor for an interview. He needs to kind of just lay low. But let me know, were you surprised by the firing? Because he didn't get fired after the playoff game, did you just assume he was going to get the whole year anyway? And the fact that the Chargers fired him in season, to be honest with you, I was a little surprised. Even as bad as the game looked, I just felt like he was going to get the whole season. Especially with Herbert being injured now, I felt like that was going to be an excuse. But nope, he couldn't survive it, and Brandon Staley is finally gone. Speaking of coaches who could be gone, because if you remember, what was it, last week? Or like a couple of weeks ago, the report came out that Robert Kraft had made up his mind on Bill Belichick and they were going to part ways. Yet a couple of days ago, Ian Rappaport had the report that his fate has not been decided yet. And it's going to be about the rest of the season, whether or not he keeps the job. So NFL insiders have to let me know which report's true. I mean, I tend to, I guess, agree with Rappaport because I don't think Belichick should be a lame duck coach. I also, look, I would understand if at the end of the season, Robert Kraft decides to move on from Belichick. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm rooting for that to happen, but I get it. Robert Kraft has become unhappy with the direction of the team. This season looks like more of the same. But like I said, where I can agree with Rappaport is that the change has been made to Bailey Zappi supposedly for the rest of the season, as I see it, unless something were to happen to Zappi. So if Zappi all of a sudden comes in and they finish the season strong, could that not be enough for Kraft to tell Belichick now, okay, so you have Zappi. Is he your future plans at quarterback? And if he is, can you please get him some skill position players, an offensive line, so I can see what this team's really about? Because look, Mac Jones took a lot of flack this season for the way that the Patriots have played. And yes, some of that is definitely on Mac Jones. Because like I said before, confidence was shot, decision-making was all over the place. But a lot of that was also attributed to the wide receiver group not being special in terms of, guys who can create space and give him open windows to throw to. The offensive line's been up and down, very inconsistent all season. A lot of quarterbacks would struggle under those circumstances. So I can't put it all on Mac Jones, but Mac Jones obviously does not get away scot-free because of it. Now, yes, Bailey Zappi's had the same issues the past couple of weeks, yet has looked better. Now, when he first went in there, that was, understandable for him to struggle. But the Steelers game, he had the full week to prepare. You saw the first half against Pittsburgh, pretty good defense. And the offense was doing things that us Patriots fans hadn't seen most of this season. So could it be that Belichick's fate in New England hinges on Bailey Zappi? Because defensively, the defense has still been great, which is why I'm okay if Belichick sticks around after this season. Because Belichick is a defensive guy, And unlike Brandon Staley, Belichick's defenses have been performing really well. Now, I do think the conversation that might be, the overarching decision making in all this is if Kraft approaches Belichick and says, if you want to stay here, you can be the head coach, but I'm taking the GM duties away from you. And if Belichick's okay with that, then Kraft is willing to let him stay. But if he fights that and says, I need to be GM still, then I could see Kraft saying, well, I'm sorry, then we're going to have to part ways and move on from here. Because another variable in all this is Gerard Mayo, who is the linebackers coach, kind of like assistant defensive coordinator. Look, Belichick doesn't make it really clear what a lot of his coaches actually do. Like, we know Stephen Belichick, because we see him on the sideline, is a defensive coordinator, but I feel like Mayo does have input as well. So, but yeah, Kraft is a big fan of Gerard Mayo. Would love to see Gerard Mayo be the successor to Bill Belichick. But if he kind of doesn't do it this season, I feel like Mayo is going to come up again for coaching positions this offseason. I'm assuming because he was up for them last year. And the defense, the way that they performed this year, hasn't done anything to really hurt Mayo's stock. So I don't know. It's a tricky situation because also like the report up there at the top where it says Belichick and the Patriots are destined to part ways, but the breakup is clouded in uncertainty. Gerard Mayo is a big uncertainty that plays a factor in all this. So once again, my official stance is yes, some of the draft picks recently from Belichick have come back to bite them. Yes, the quarterback position's a mess, but because the defense is still so good and the players are playing for Belichick, like if the Patriots are playing like the Chargers did on Thursday, I'd say like, yeah, Belichick's got to go. But you can't tell me a game that you've seen the Patriots play in where you've seen that kind of effort. Like I said, yes, the offense has been a mess in some of those games. That's put the defense in tough situations, but players on offense have been trying. It's just that the skill isn't there. And defensively, they have done more than enough for this Patriots team, for the Patriots to be more than a 3-win team. So I guess we'll see how the rest of the season goes. And at the end of the season, we'll revisit this, see what happens to Belichick. I just hate, that report made it seem like he was a lame duck coach because I think that's disrespectful to Belichick for all that he's done for him to be a lame duck coach. It should be at the end of the season, he and Kraft talk, mutually parting ways. I think that's the most respectful way for Belichick to leave because that seems like he's leaving on his own terms and not Kraft necessarily firing him. But yeah, you let me know which report you believe, that Belichick's gone at the end of the year because the decision's been made, or do you think he could end up being in New England next season and maybe for a couple of seasons in the foreseeable future? All right, so Cam Newton. This is a story I don't know if a lot of you know what happened here or anything like that, but Cam Newton made news by comparing quarterbacks and calling some game changers and others game managers, which, I mean, that's been talked for years, how to really decipher between quarterbacks and ranking them and all that. Everybody does that. I've done that. You've done that. But Cam Newton's explanation, because he talked about some quarterbacks from today, where he said like Prescott, Purdy, Tua, Jared Goff are game managers, and that ruffled some feathers because game manager is such a negative connotation now that because those teams are winning, it's hard to see them as game managers. So ESPN talked about it and everything like that. So Cam Newton tried to clarify it. I don't know if he made it clearer with this clarification, but I saw the clarification video and looked a little bit more into it, and I think I kind of get where he was trying to come from. It's just I don't know if he fully, you know, explained it well enough. So basically, for him, in order to be a game changer, he said there's only like 5 of them in the league right now, and he named Patrick Mahomes, he named Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers. He said those are the 5 game changers. So basically saying that everybody else is a game manager. I look at the 5 that he calls game changers, and I feel like what they all have in common is kind of like if the play breaks down, they have the ability to still make a play. I think that's where Cam Newton's calling those guys game changers. Where not, everything doesn't have to necessarily be perfect around them for them to be effective because of their ability, because of their, I guess, IQ and everything like that, which I'm fine with. Game manager, he's looking at, like Prescott, Purdy, Tua, and Jared Goff, and I think he highlighted Purdy with this one by saying basically that Purdy was a trailer on the wagon of the 49ers and not necessarily the driver. Which, once again, if you look at the 49ers play, their success is built on the fact that they have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and these guys, Christian McCaffrey on offense, and Purdy, being a Mr. Irrelevant, isn't asked to do too much. So because of that, Cam calls him a game manager. But once again, game manager has been negatively discussed for so many years that when you hear game manager, you automatically assume the quarterback stinks and the team's winning despite them. Where I could say, I wouldn't say that for Brock Purdy or Tua or Jared Goff or Dak Prescott. Those guys contribute to their team's success. So that's what I think the problem is. The fact that Cam tried to put game manager in a positive light, which I can agree with him there. Because then he talked about some past quarterbacks that were elite game managers, and he put Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and those guys in that. I also think that's where he kind of dropped the ball a little bit because, yes, Tom Brady was seen as a game manager early in his career because, like Brock Purdy, he was a 6th-round pick. Not a lot was expected of him. He wasn't even the starter in New England from day one because they had Drew Bledsoe, and because of the Bledsoe injuries, how Brady was elevated to that spot. But those early years, he, handed the ball off a lot. He threw a lot of short, quick passes, moved the ball down the field. But they relied so much on their great defense to create short fields and everything like that. Very conservative game plan. That's where I see the game manager part. But you can't tell me that Brady was just a game manager when he had years with wide receiver groups that probably a lot of you couldn't name most of the guys he was throwing to, and he still found success with those players. Does that not necessarily make him a game changer then? Because he's the guy who was the, who spearheaded those teams making deep runs in the playoffs. Now, Manning, kind of the same way. Manning had years in Indy where their defense was awful, and because Manning's offense, led by him, won a lot of games and made the playoffs. So that's why I guess the backlash is coming from, because like I said, game manager, when you hear it, you think of guys like Trent Dilfer and everything like that. Whereas I don't actually think everybody that he put on the list as game managers are actually game managers. So I don't know. You let me know what you think. Like, who would you call a game manager in today's NFL? Because if I'm going to say anybody's a game manager, you would think like Zach Wilson. Because for Zach Wilson, with as great of a defense the Jets have, all the Jets kind of want Zach Wilson to do is not turn the ball over. That seems like a game manager to me. They don't want him to make plays. If he does, that's a plus. But it's almost like they go into every week trying to game plan for how to limit his mistakes. And to me, if you told me that's what a game manager was, I'm there with you. But I mean, look, Cam Newton had an opinion. What's the problem with that? He's free to have one. He has a platform to put that out to everybody, and he used it. Now, whether you agree or disagree, that's also within your right as well. But, some people who are acting like Cam Newton shouldn't be talking or anything like that, that's obviously an issue, but that's an issue that goes well beyond sports in today's world, respecting other opinions. But, I'm not going to go down that road. So, look, Cam Newton, and look, I guess I need to say this. I almost feel like a lot of the backlash from Cam Newton is because of kind of the latter part of his career where he wasn't a successful quarterback. Let's be honest. He slowly became almost like a wildcat running back playing quarterback, which he still found ways to win games. But that's not who Cam Newton necessarily was for the bulk of his career, because Cam Newton found success in college. He won an MVP. He made a Super Bowl. He did all that on Carolina teams that you could make the argument weren't the most talented, but because of him and his ability, he got them much further than and probably other quarterbacks would. So, just saying. All right, so the new segment that I debuted last week, something to chomp on, is where, I mean, look, I haven't even necessarily ironed out what the segment even is about, but I leave it open to kind of, you who tune in, if you want to throw questions out there to answer them, or if there's something that's like pressing in terms of my mind that I want to talk about, then I'll use that here. I think that's where I'm going to end up going with it. So, as I said last week, if you have suggestions for me, whether it's top 5 list that you want me to go on about, or whatever. Because remember, last week I talked about like Grand Theft Auto 6 because I'm a big gamer, and to kind of let you know how that is a part of the channel and everything. I talked about the GTA 6 trailer. So we leave this segment for kind of stuff, whether it is sports related, or like other entertainment type things. Look, it's still a work in progress, but for this week, my thing to chomp on is this shirt here, which Mike Tomlin wore last night on the sideline, is getting a whole bunch of attention because of the message it's portraying. And I guess some people didn't like that because we heard the dreaded term, the shirt being woke. Which, once again, this kind of stretches beyond the sports world. Because woke is a term that's been, I don't know, it's been used probably more times than you really want to hear. What the actual definition of it, I don't know. It's used for every kind of instance under the sun where something is, put in front of you that goes against kind of what you believe, whether you're on one side of political or society spectrum, from the other side that you don't like, you call it woke. It's like an umbrella term for basically something you don't agree with, I guess. I don't know. But so let's get into the shirt here. The shirt says justice, opportunity, freedom, equity, NFL. I guess the timing of the shirt plays into the story as well, because all of a sudden, Steeler fans once again want to call for Mike Tomlin's job. This is a bit of a annual tradition now for the past couple of seasons, because yes, it looks like maybe the Steelers keep the over 500 streak going, but they're probably not going to be a playoff team. And if they are a playoff team, it's going to be a very short stay in the playoffs, and Steeler fans are mad about that. Sure, as a fan, you're allowed to feel that way. I get it. I mean, we just talked about New England. I'm right there with you. But looking at the issues that are in Pittsburgh, I don't, the fact that you want to fire Mike Tomlin now for what? Because he has a quarterback in Kenny Pickett who's, I guess, hurt now, but has been inconsistent all year. You have a backup in Mitch Trubisky, not that good. Matt Canada, who's just fired, was leading an offense that was not that good. Mike Tomlin, defensive minded coach. The Steelers defense, not bad. But now Mike Tomlin's got to go. So Steelers fans, if you watch this, let me know if you fire Mike Tomlin, who do you want instead? I guess if you have a good answer to that, sure, maybe I'll entertain Mike Tomlin needing to go. Because yes, Mike Tomlin's been there forever. I get it. But it seems like he's still a pretty good coach. So why necessarily do you want him gone? I don't know. But that's for you to kind of let me know. But yes, the shirt. And also, if Mike Tomlin got fired tomorrow, by the end of the week, he'd have a job ready to go. Like, let's be real about it. Now, the shirt, once again, I feel like it's speaking to the fact that Tomlin's talking about, the fans, some fans wanting him to get fired. The landscape of the NFL where minority hiring is still an issue. I think that is the motivation behind the shirt. I guess you could look at it and say, is Mike Tomlin the right person to be wearing the shirt because he's had the same job within the same organization for a lot longer than a lot of guys who should be a head coach? Like if Brian Flores wore this shirt on the Vikings sideline, would it be an issue? I mean, yes, because the same ones who called it woke on Mike Tomlin would say it's woke on Brian Flores. But Brian Flores is a guy who I think embodies the message of the shirt. Because Brian Flores came up through the Patriot system, was seen as a it guy, as one of the next guys to be a really good head coach, got his opportunity in Miami, had success in Miami. I think had like one down year. But the year that ultimately became his final year in Miami, the team did well. And it's supposedly because of some bumping of heads between he and an owner, and Stephen Ross, who was not even that good of an owner. Flores was cast out. You had the lawsuit or whatever with the league. That seemed to backfire on Flores more than Stephen Ross and the Dolphins. And he's been trying to get back to the head coaching ranks ever since. Now, this past offseason, he could have gotten the Cardinals job, but he turned it down because, well, it's the Cardinals job where Kyler Murray was going into the season hurt. It was kind of a doomed situation. The Bidwells who own the Cardinals aren't seen as great owners anyway. So why was that the job that Brian Flores had to take? He didn't take it. He took the Vikings defensive coordinator job, I guess to up his value, which you can obviously say he has because the Vikings defense has been really good, whereas last year without him, it was pretty bad. So that should be a reason that Flores gets interviews this offseason and should get offered a job. That's one. Two, Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy's been a guy who, with the Chiefs, was seen as an it guy, the next guy to be a superstar head coach. Then he finally gets opportunities in interviews, but never gets a job. Later we find out it's because, he has baggage. He's a terrible interviewer. You can't tell me that every coach who's been hired may not have some baggage or is a great interview. Because I saw the Adam Gase thing when he went to the Jets and that look on his face during the press conference. They hired that guy. and he was awful at it. I mean, Adam Gase is now, I don't even know where he is now, but that's neither here nor there. But Bieniemy, it was like, well, how good was he? You know, he had Andy Reid there. He wasn't calling plays. He wasn't that good. So Eric Bieniemy had to leave Kansas City, which is probably a job he actually liked, but he had to leave there because the perception was as long as he stayed in Kansas City, he was never going to be seen as the guy actually running this offense. So Bieniemy leaves. The Chiefs' offense this season took a step back. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 2. So it seems like the loss of Bieniemy impacted the Chiefs' offense. He goes to Washington. The Commanders' offense wasn't that great going into it. Now all of a sudden, people think Sam Howell might be a friend or might be a starting quarterback, maybe even a franchise quarterback in this league. What did Washington do? They just brought in Bieniemy, and now all of a sudden, Howell seems like the answer at quarterback. So once again, Bieniemy should get interviews, probably should get an offer. We will see. But there's others out there as well, but I don't want to sit here and continue on. So back to Mike Tomlin. Another part of this story that kind of got on my nerves, Ben Roethlisberger talking about maybe the tradition of the Pittsburgh Steelers is done. Maybe it needs to be formed a new kind of way. I don't know. As a little cutout here says, that was seen as a shot at Mike Tomlin. Look, Big Ben, you were there in Pittsburgh longer than you needed to be. Your last 3-4 years, you could barely move. You could at a certain point, you could barely throw, and the Steelers weren't really winning much with you. You were the quarterback that had that team as 11-0, and then lost every game after that, one and done in the playoffs. So I guess that was Mike Tomlin's fault and the Steeler tradition, right? Give me a break. I cannot stand these ex-players and stuff who maybe he and Tomlin didn't see eye to eye at the end. Maybe Tomlin wanted him gone a little earlier, and Big Ben knew that and got butthurt by it. Not my problem. Because like I said, from the outside looking in, Big Ben overstayed his welcome in Pittsburgh. He was no longer a starting quarterback at the end. I'm not going to put that on Mike Tomlin. That's more on Big Ben. Oh, and also Big Ben, the Steelers tradition, was your little incident in Georgia part of that Steelers tradition? Should we talk about that? I guess that's untouchable, but I can't stand it. And then all the fans who will jump on Big Ben's side because Big Ben is Steelers great. I say he was overrated, but that's neither here nor there. Big Ben is just, I guess, speaking for those who may not like Mike Tomlin for some reasons. I'll let you fill in that blank. But yeah, I don't get it. If the Steelers make that decision, which I don't even know if they would, because it seems like Rooney, they made the Rooney rule for him. He's not a guy who necessarily likes firing coaches. He's only had 3 in his time in Pittsburgh. And that's when Cowher wasn't winning every year. Cowher had some down years. Kept him for as long as Cowher wanted to be there. So with Mike Tomlin, I don't think he ends up getting fired, but if he does, dumb move, if you ask me. But yeah. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think Tomlin's job should be in jeopardy? And do you have a problem with this? I guess I have to point that way. With this shirt, I don't. If the message is too much for you, you might have to look at yourself in the mirror and wonder why it bothers you. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, so I just don't get it. Tomlin's not even the only one. Like I said, the Belichick stuff, don't get. The Vrabel talk in Tennessee, don't get. What has Mike Vrabel done that people question whether or not he should be the Titans' job going forward? whether or not he should be the Titans head coach. Players play for him. He seems like he's pretty good on the sideline. Why get rid of him? So many teams in this league have Brandon Staleys who stink at their job and seemingly had to keep it because of a contract or whatever reason, or because the front office doesn't know what a good head coach looks like, that the actual good head coaches in the league are being questioned for unknown reasons. Now, look, if you wanted to tell me that Mike Tomlin should go because he's been there forever and you want a new voice, that's fine, because that's destined to happen at a certain point. But if your reason to let go of Mike Tomlin is because of what Big Ben said, I'm not listening to that. Because like I said, Big Ben didn't exactly represent the Pittsburgh Steelers tradition well either. And now for him to be sitting at home and throwing shots from, I think it's his podcast or whatever, unwarranted. So that's what I'm chomping on. Like I said, I'm still figuring out what to do with this segment, but expect more stories kind of like this. Yes, this one was sports related, but I feel like it kind of crossed into off the field stuff. So that's all I got. That's it. My picks, I think I put those up on my TikTok. If not, I will post those really quickly after this episode. All my socials right there at the bottom. You got the YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you already know the channel, but I'm saying YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Twitch, X, Twitter, whatever you call it, right there at the bottom. Up at the top, you got Instagram and Discord. Join the Discord. I do have one. I'm on it sometimes. But like if more of you join the Discord, I'll definitely be on there more. I'm trying to be on there more and more. But for Discord, what fun is it if I'm not interacting with you? That's what the whole point of the show is. So if Discord is your method of choice, you join the Discord. You know, we can definitely interact there between episodes, talking about, you know, sports or whatever down there. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And I promise you I will be on there more and more as people join it. So I guess thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Actually, let's do this here. Hold on a second. We'll do that. We'll do this. Bam. What's up? Also, the layout, got to thank my boy Juan for that. You know, he made that for me. Definitely love it. So just had to shout out Juan real quickly. But yeah, look, I understand I did this literally a few minutes before kickoff on the 1 o'clock games. So maybe you catch this after the fact, which no problem with me. But yeah, I'll definitely, I'm trying to do more of these a week. I promise you, I'm trying to find it within my schedule because I do have a lot of fun doing these, especially now that they're all live. Love it even more. So like I said, the TikTok channel, which was on the overlay, which I guess I could bring that back up so you can see that. There we go. And hold on a second. Let's do this. There we go. I'll leave with that as I close out here. But we'll do this here as well. Okay, so yeah, so Juan produced the layout. Those are the socials up to them. And we will interact. But the Discord, trust me, get on the Discord. So yes, hopefully my Patriots are doing well. I think I saw that the Chiefs scored first. Hopefully Bailey Zappi and crew can answer I've been watching Man United, Liverpool, a lot going on. Let me know what you're watching this weekend. What games, in terms of NFL, Premier League, whatever. Let me know in the comment section what games you're watching this weekend. We're coming up on the holidays. There will be shows. I will have episodes and everything for you this coming week, leading up to Christmas. Don't worry about that. I'm not going anywhere. I guess some clips will be out shortly on TikTok and everything. So, really appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in. Be safe. God bless. Like I said, be really safe around the holidays because, we already know some people be crazy out here. Want you all to be careful. Also, reach out to loved ones and all that. Holiday time can be tough on some. So, definitely an obligation to let them know that they're here. Because you can put a smile on somebody's face that could really need that. So, with that, enjoy the games. Enjoy the games of today, tonight. I'll be back with you hopefully tomorrow or Tuesday to kind of recap what happened this weekend in the NFL. Plus, if the Pistons win by the time I come back, we'll talk about that. If they're still losing, we'll talk about that as well. And I guess if there's more fallout from the Tomlin shirt or Cam Newton, we'll definitely touch on those again. But yeah. If you have anything you want me to talk about, you can put that in the comment section. Or if you do join the Discord, there's a channel on the Discord for you to give me suggestions for topics. I'll definitely take those into consideration as well. Look, I let you drive how this show works. So, once again, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you later. I'm out. Be good.